Hi everyone, welcome to a very special video today. I'm privileged to be able to sit down today with Chriss Caroe, and he was a former commanding officer in the Royal Marines during the Falklands Conflict. I'm going to ask him about some of his experiences and also some of the things he's been up to with the Royal British Legion since then. But I'm also going to do something really special. This is a 5-ounce silver masterpiece coin that we bring out every year for the Royal British Legion. It's very difficult to get your hands on because it's very limited edition. I'm going to give one of these to Chriss. He doesn't know anything about that. So stay tuned to right to the end of our chat to see his reaction. What I'm going to do is close the lid, put it in its box and hide it here behind my shoulder. He's going to come and sit here. So as you watch him and hear some of his fascinating stories, I'm sure you'll know that he's going to get this at the end. So he'll be here any minute. Let me move. He can come and sit here in my place. Chriss, welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. Great to be here.
No, thank you for joining us. It's
Pleasure.
a privilege to have you with us. I want to start right back at the beginning for you, actually. What was your inspiration for joining the military in the first place?
I went to school locally, just outside Bournemouth, and the CCF was sponsored by Royal Marines Pool. So as a young lad, I was down there having a look and going on the range and everything, and I thought, yep, these are the guys that great respect. I'd like to join them when I leave school. So it was purely from the CCF that I ended up joining the Royal Marines, yeah.
For those who don't know, what is the CCF?
Combined Cadet Force.
Ah, Commando.
Yeah, it's like
fantastic.
the cadets. Yeah, it is cadets. It's like the Army, Navy, Air Force cadets.
Right, and that set you up to go straight in?
Yeah, eventually. It took a bit of getting there, but in the end, yes, I joined up in January 1980.
Right, okay. How old were you then?
I was 19.
19. So quite a young man going straight into the military.
Yep.
And were you deployed in different places? Can you tell me where you were deployed during your time?
Straight from training in August 81, I went straight out to Northern Ireland with 4-5 Commando. We came back in the end of October. I then went to Norway in January for the Arctic warfare training. Right. I then joined 4-5, X company on the mountains up in Scotland for their mountain training. Literally a week before the Falklands. Then the Falklands kicked off, and my troop, well, with X Company 4-5 Commando, we then, we went down south, as they say.
Went down south. So let me ask you, you've had a couple of years of training, and then you go straight off into conflict. What was that like for you, as still quite a young man?
A bit daunting. 21 at that stage, so I had 32 guys as a young troop commander. The ambition, obviously, is to take everybody down and bring everybody back, and hope that all the training you've done at Lympstone comes to fruition and you don't make a fool of yourself, but you actually do the job properly. Right. I was quite fortunate, I think, that yes, we all came back together intact.
So you've had 2 years of training, you've gone into conflict. Is there anything in particular about that time in the Falklands that kind of really stands out to you? What was a key moment?
The reason the Argentinians invaded has been talked about and written about for years. Why did we go down? We went down to retake the Falklands, but it was only when we went into Douglas settlement and we were the first troops in, and the settlers had literally just managed to break out of where they'd been confined by the Argentinians, and they came up and hugged us and kissed us. There were tears. And thereafter it was for them. That was the moment when you really realised that these poor guys, the Argentinians had come in and basically been told that the islanders were going to welcome them with open arms, and they didn't. The Queen, it was red and white, curbstones, the red telephone boxes. There was nothing there for the Argentinians, and they certainly didn't want them. And when the islanders came out of their confinement at Douglas and came to us, that was the most poignant part, I think, of the whole campaign, was that we knew then who it was for and what we were fighting for.
Yeah, so it transitioned from for country to
yes,
for people.
For the people, absolutely. Yeah, very much so.
So how did that spur you on in the battle?
When you actually go into battle, you're working with your buddy. My buddy was my radio operator, Graham Adcock, and you covered each other's back, and that's what you did. You were depended on each other for your life, and as it built up, from headquarters to each section, people would work together as a small team, 3-4 man units. So you covered each other's back, and it was buddy. and you knew you could trust them. So that's when you go into battle, they're the guys your life depends on, is that you all work together as a team. And if that breaks down, then it all breaks down. But no, they were great. They worked together as a team. They thought outside the box. If something, certainly halfway through the attack, it faltered a bit. And one of my Marines came up to me and said, "Boss, what about using a 66, which is a throwaway anti-tank weapon?" So we used it as a bunker buster, and it was brilliant. His first round missed the mountain, but the second round actually, smacked right behind where the machine gun was and silenced it. So it was a Marines' initiative, their bravery, their determination, their tenacity, their good humour. That's what drove everybody through. In the middle of a firefight, when Nick missed the mountain, the place just erupted with cheers and catcalls and everything else, even though the bullets were whizzing around and shells exploding. It was just that moment of surrealism in the middle of a firefight, but then they picked it up and they cracked on again. So yeah, it was the humour of the guys. It was outstanding. It really was.
For someone like me, who's never experienced anything like this, to hear about humour on the battlefield is quite extraordinary. And it's lovely to hear, actually, about that camaraderie. Is that something that really helped spur you all on together?
I think the guys have been together for quite some time. As I said, the unit had been in Northern Ireland, so I wasn't with the troop then. But they'd all worked very closely together in a very confined space there, and they continued to train thereafter. So they knew each other inside out. So they were a really, really good team. Two troop were fantastic. There was, without a shadow of a doubt. And my troop sergeant, a guy called George Matthews, again, was just brilliant. He kept them all in order. He was a great leader. He actually went on to become a lieutenant colonel. That's the caliber of the guy. He was really, he is an outstanding, Royal Marine. So yes, I was very fortunate in that aspect. But halfway through the attack, a shell landed literally in the middle of one of my sections, and it hit probably the only boggy bit on that bit of the mountain, and it absorbed most of the blast. 3 or 4 of the guys were thrown on their backsides. One guy had his shoulder dislocated, a couple of them perforated eardrums, one guy broke his nose, but they all got up, bar Corporal Montgomery, who had damaged his shoulder, and cracked on. They brushed themselves off and got on with it. That was the quality of them. It was a slight, setback, but no, they got on and cracked on, and they were just brilliant, absolutely outstanding.
Forgive me, but coming under shelling being a slight setback is it's very foreign to me. I have my family history in the military, but not served myself, so it's an honour to hear some of this. So in that battle, how long did that last, the battle itself?
I think it was about 4 hours in total. We were late getting to the start line, and then we were very fortunate the Argentinians had pulled back almost to the end of the objective. So when James Kelly and 1 troop had taken their first objective, and then Dave with 3 troop had taken the second objective, it was when he asked for permission to exploit forward that he came under fire. And then my company commander Ian Gardner basically pulled me to one side with my troop sergeant, briefed us on what we had to do. We briefed the guys, and then we just moved on up the hill until we came under effective enemy fire, and then continued up, basically covering each other and shooting as we went.
Right. And won the battle?
Won the battle without losing a man.
Incredible. And I get that you're making quite light of it in some ways, but I imagine it was quite an intense moment. Was it just the training that saw you through it, or was there more to it than that?
I think it is the training. I think the Royal Marines and the Paras train hard, fight easy, and the training. Your 6 months for the Marines, your year plus now for the officers, is intense training. It's the Royal Marines are the only people who train together, officers and men. So the men can see what the officers are going through, and vice versa. So. When we're being beasted, the Marines are looking down and going, yep, they're getting the same as us. So there's a bit of mutual respect, and it carries all the way through the corps. So I think in that aspect we are unique, that we all train together, and there is that band of brothers that when you pass that, when you've earned your green beret, you have joined an exclusive family. There's no doubt about that.
And I imagine you keep those ties for the rest of your life.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. The guys who I served with down there, every time we meet every 5 years up in Arbroath, which is where 4-5 Commando is based, big hugs, slap on the back, get a pint in, sit down, you know, chew the gristle and catch up, and you know, from the last time we met. So no, it's great. And good old modern media nowadays with WhatsApp and everything, we have a WhatsApp group, so we're always taking the mickey out of each other. So yeah, no, it's great. We're a good extended family.
And do you remind your comrade about the time he missed the mountain each time as well?
Oh yes.
Great. I love that. And then after that battle, what happened next then for you?
We basically had a couple of days when we did a bit of survey for the Scots Guards on Mount Tumbledown. So we watched what was going on. We tried to locate where the main machine gun posts were and the minefields where we watched the guys coming round. We relayed that information back, and then we watched their attack go in, and it was quite surreal because, you know, you see pictures of war films of Tracer arching across the sky and then landing and everything else, and it looks very quiet and serene. But what most people forget, there were 4 other rounds between each of the flashes of light, the Tracer. So although it only looks as though there's 1 or 2 bullets landing around the enemy, actually there's 5 at a time. So the first time it fired at us, we thought, oh, there's not a lot coming in, and then you were suddenly reminded of the other four rounds in between, and watching that go in with the Scots Guards. And actually, while we were waiting to move up on Two Cisterns, we were watching the 3-para to our left on Mount Longdon. It was exactly the same again. The Tracer arching across the bursts of shell fire, the illumination flares going up and everything else. We thought, how can anybody live through that? And then I spoke to a couple of paras, you know, a few years later, and they thought exactly the same when they watched Two Sisters, you know, the battle on Two Sisters. How does anyone survive what looks like a big pictorial firework display without much noise, because it's so far away? But yeah, when it's up close, it's very noisy. Yeah.
And how long did these battles last for?
I think between 4 and 6 hours for most of the units, yeah. And it was a real hard slog. You were fighting uphill, and you were fighting in huge, great boulders. You know, it was almost like fighting in a built-up area. So somebody would come up behind you in like a wardrobe and duck behind it, and then throw a grenade over it, and then the 2 guys would run forward, and then you'd move forward again. And it was communication with the guys because of the terrain. The small radios we had didn't really work, so everybody was shouting. So it was very much, you know, movement all together, and you know, move as one and move as little individual units.
Yeah. Now it sounds like chaos to me in some ways, but I'm sure it was quite ordered as well.
Organised chaos, I think, would probably be the S. I think you're probably right.
Yeah. So looking back at those times, is there anything that stands out for you? I mean, for our collectors who maybe have served or have military families, what would you like to tell them that is your most precious memory from that time?
The one thing that I will always remember, the moment of relief at the end, was when we'd marched into Port Stanley and we were on the jetty waiting to be taken off for 3 days R&R on RFA Percival. And myself, my troop sergeant, and a few others were on the jetty, and one of my Marines came up and went, boss, there's a pub open and they're giving away free beer. So George detailed off 3 or 4 Marines. They went off, got some slabs of beer, came back, and we dumped our Bergens on the ground, grabbed a beer, and James Kelly, one of a fellow officers, broke his cigar in half and said, right, here you are, I think we're here. And we sat down, and that's when the tension released, because we thought, actually, we've survived, we're at the end, we're just about to embark for 3 days R&R. And that feeling of total relief and happiness was just something that was, you know, indescribable. It was a moment of elation. It really was, that you suddenly thought, right, we've done it, we're here. Actually, when we went back into Stanley, we started clearing the houses. There were kind of ordnance all over the place, kind of grenades and weapons and everything else. We had to be very careful what you did after that. But and obviously there were quite a few of the poor Royal Engineers who went back afterwards and who lost limbs because they were trying to clear some of the minefields, unmarked minefields around Port Stanley. But as a whole, I think when we sat down on the pier and we thought, yes, we've survived, and it was the most surreal feeling, it really was.
It just sounds like a wonderful moment. And I imagine before that moment, you'd spend a number of days just feeling tense the whole time. How long were you there before this moment of relief?
We landed on the 21st. and all the way through until the kind of 16th when we actually went on, 16th of June when we actually went on board Percival. So what's that, 20 something days?
20 something days of intense, just
yeah,
living
it was pretty intense, living under the stars. It was, we loved what we did. It's what we trained for. You know, the Royal Marines train on Dartmoor. Well, it was so similar to the Falklands. You know, it's pretty miserable, especially during the winter, and you know, it's cold, wet, damp, and you get used to, you know, trudging over a very wet, spongy terrain, and that's exactly what the Falklands was about. So I think we were definitely suited to the job of taking the Falklands, and the Paras are fairly similar with where they train as well. So yes, the best guys were definitely sent down there to do the job. Yeah. And the support everybody had afterwards with the Royal British Legion, you know, offering support was great. Everybody appreciated that.
So was it the very best beer you've ever had in your life?
That beer was really good, and then that night after we'd had a wash for the first time, and then we had a bit of fresh bread for the first time, and a beer in the bar, and they had the tape from Chariots of Fire, and on it is Jerusalem. And Jerusalem came on, and we all started singing, and I, for one, blubbed like a baby, because it was the elation I had on the quayside kind of grew because I got a bit more alcohol inside me, and it just came out. But yeah, we all just stood there and sang Jerusalem. It was had it at my wedding, and I cried at that too.
I almost wish I was there. It's a moment that most of us don't get to experience unless you've done something so intense and then got that victory, got to the end safely.
Yeah.
But thank you for telling us about it. I mean, you've put it into words which many people couldn't do, so thank you.
I was very lucky. I've got to say, a lot of the guys came back, especially one of my very good friends suffering from post-traumatic stress. And because when we came back, I'm not saying it was a booze cruise, but we unwound and we relaxed on the way back from the Falklands. 4-5 went to Ascension Island, well, half of 4-5 Commando went to Ascension Island and flew back from there. The rest remained on board Canberra, and landed at Southampton with those fantastic pictures that, you know, you see with the boat coming in and the small boats supporting them and everything else. And I think a lot of us managed to get the demons out of us on the way back. Some had more inbuilt demons, and it's where people like the Royal British Legion fund those who actually can help with the PTS and everything else, and get people sorted. But certainly those who had been injured or burnt tragically on Galahad, they went from a sterile condition from the Falklands to Montevideo, then flown back, so they didn't have that chance to speak with their friends and their colleagues and get that release, which I think most of us did do when we were coming back. So although there was a lot of it, I think a lot of the guys had it deeply buried, I think. But those who had been badly injured, they didn't get that chance to actually get it released and bring it out into the open. And, you know, when you're a serviceman, you know, you're not a big sissy, you're not going to sit down and cry in front of other people. So you tend to bottle it up, which is probably the worst thing you can do. You know, you've got to sit down with a friend, a colleague, and talk it through. And, you know, funding from the Royal British Legion to help people do that is essential to everybody.
And of course, the Royal British Legion have been facilitating that kind of support for 100 years, well, 101 years
101
now,
years, yes, yeah. Absolutely, 1921. And obviously just not for the Falklands, but for Northern Ireland, for the Iraq, Afghanistan, Bosnia, so all the conflicts since, you know, it's, and we mustn't forget kind of Borneo and Malaya and, you know, the guys who are in their 80s and 90s, who didn't fight through the Second World War, but maybe went to Korea or one of the many conflicts thereafter. And again, it was all bottled up, you know, when you took it on the chin and got on with it. But as you got older, things began to break down. So yes, there's always that shoulder to cry on.
And that's why you've got involved just a little bit, really, in helping the Royal British Legion, haven't you?
No more than kind of helping, you know, sell poppies at around Remembrance Day. You know, what more can you do? It's engaging with the public. It's asking them to give for those who have given so much. So yes, it doesn't take a couple of hours on the street in Chester is not a lot to ask for, really.
No, but not everyone does that.
No, they don't.
So you've given a life of service and then some more to help others.
A little bit more to help,
so
yeah.
If anyone can, help in any way. Yes, so obviously you help out selling the poppies, which is fantastic. We'd love more people to do that. And at the Westminster Collection, of course, we've worked with the Royal British Legion for over a decade, producing commemorative coins. We've actually given them over £1 million now in donations, which is fantastic. But we think what you've done is far superior to that. And we'd like to say thank you to you, if that's okay, you don't know about this, but we've got a surprise for you.
Okay.
And it's sitting behind you. I'm going to go and grab it.
Okay.
Let me just grab this. So every year we work with the Royal British Legion to produce some coins.
Okay.
I'm going to present you with this. And this is
Thank
for
you.
for your
Right.
service.
Wow, it's heavy.
It is.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
This is called the Royal British Legion Remembrance Poppy.
Yeah.
A masterpiece coin.
Okay.
It's 5 ounces of pure silver. Feel free to get it right out.
Okay, we'll do.
Now, every year we produce a masterpiece. This might be my favourite one that we've ever had.
Yeah.
As I say, 5 ounces of silver, masterpiece poppy coin. The poppy there on the front, you're displaying that perfectly, thank you, is actually hand painted
Wow.
by our in-house artist. And each one is hand painted by him.
Yeah.
There's 350 in the world, and that's all. If you have a look at it, actually, you'll see there's actually an image of the
Oh, that is
Falklands.
fantastic. That's beautifully painted.
Yeah. There's an image of the Falklands there behind it, along with 39 other poppies. So that's 40 poppies.
Yeah.
The 40th anniversary, of course, this year of the Falklands
Wow.
War.
That is incredible. And a picture of the boss behind.
Picture of the boss behind. I think you've got a story about the boss.
Her
which
Majesty.
I'll ask you about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd like you to have that.
Oh, that is so
with
kind. Thank
With
you.
our thanks. Hope you really enjoy that. You really deserve it. Thanks for your time and for your service to our country.
Well, on behalf of 2 Troop X Company 45 Commando, I say thank you.
You're very welcome. Chris, just before we go, I understand you've met the boss.
I did. I'm a Toastmaster, amongst other things, and I was very fortunate to be the kind of honorary Toastmaster for the Lord Mayor of Liverpool. And we had Her Majesty and His Royal Highness for lunch a few years ago. And it all went really, really well. We were having lunch, got them all sat down, and the puddings got stuck in the lift. So I had to go to the Queen's Equerry and advise him that things might run late, and he very politely told me, no, you have a problem, I don't. You will feed Her Majesty and you will feed His Royal Highness. I don't care if anybody else doesn't get fed. So anyhow, the Queen and the top table and everybody else was eventually fed. They got it all sorted. But it was running a bit behind time. And the basic where I was standing was almost where you're sitting was His Royal Highness. So I turned around to him, Your Honour, have you finished? He said, oh, hang on. Tipped a bit of cream onto his spoon. Finished that off and said, I finished now, Toasty. I said, oh, thank you, sir. We're just waiting on Her Majesty. Oh, we're always waiting for her, he went. So everybody chuckled. He was what a star with a wry grin on his face. So I looked over to Her Majesty and she'd literally dabbed her mouth and put a spoon and fork down. And I thought she'd finished. And I did the biggest schoolboy error. I didn't look up again before I gavelled and said, ladies and gentlemen, will you please stand while Her Majesty and His Royal Highness retire? And there was oh, are we going somewhere? From the Queen as she was about to put a spoonful of pudding into her mouth. So bless her, she got up, she went for the wrong door, so I guided her to the right door. And Dame Lorna Muirhead, who was the Lord Lieutenant of Merseyside at the time, a fantastic lady, still is. She came up to me and said, Chris, what's the hurry? I said, Dame Lorna, we're running a little bit behind time. And Dame Lorna was there and the Queen was just behind her. She said, turn around, oh, just as well somebody's kicking us up the backside then. And the Queen's shoulders just went like that in front of her. So I thought, oh, bless her. What a great sense of humour. It was an absolute honour and a privilege to be so close and to be part of such a memorable occasion for Liverpool when she visited.
Yeah, and of course we've heard so many wonderful stories about the Queen in recent weeks since her passing.
Oh, yes.
So thank you for adding that one.
No, it's a pleasure. Absolute joy.
Chris, thank you for coming and joining us here today. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to speak with you, to hear your stories. I'm sure you're really going to love the gift that the Westminster Collection are giving to you for your service and for your time today. Wish you well.
Indeed, thank you. Cheers, Jonathan. Thanks very much indeed.